So we'll start with some simpler methods using samples and then move on to synthesis. The main problem with claps in D&B is that you can't just take claps from techno and house and use them. D&B requires claps that are stylistically appropriate. Let's go for an open hi-hat. They work quite well as they have a tail. We'll stretch it out. Shorten it using a fade out and use the waveform slider to find a good spot. A little EQ. And redux to add a bit of texture. Now take a vocal sample. Also repitch it. Let's make it shorter and adapt it to our hi-hat, and we end up with something between a snare and a clap. Now let's take a sample of the water splash. Repitch this sample, shorten it, and then use the waveform slider again to find the part where the attack is and get an unusual clap. Take a white noise sample and add some equalization with resonance to shape the tone, then render it and make it shorter. Then we'll cut our sample into a few more small pieces and fade them out. Tweak them around as you see fit, and now we can repitch each part. Increase the gain on the first part, let it generate an attack. I'll experiment some more with stretching each part to get closer to the clap sound. I'll also add just a tiny bit of hyperdimension from Serum FX to give some room. We'll need some vinyl noise. Turn up the gain. And a little EQ. Instead of cutting our sample into pieces, we can set up automation using the utility. We'll draw the attack for the clap by hand. Here I'll draw several attacks at once to simulate the sound of fingers and palms striking. Also convenient to draw the tail for our clap. And pre-shift. I'll tweak it just a little bit. And now you can move the waveform around inside the sample to find a nice crunchy spot. Now let's design our clap in Synthesizer. There is a drumming technique called a flam. It creates the impression that two beats are played simultaneously, but with a slight delay. To create the sensation of a few claps, we'll apply this technique in the synthesis. Let's add 3 short attacks to our clap. These 3 peaks will be responsible for the attack of our sound and create the sensation of several palms clapping simultaneously. We will also create a tail that essentially mimics the reverberation of room. Now let's add a bandpass filter so our sound doesn't sound so unnatural. It's convenient that Serum has this option in the distortion section. We'll also warm up this range a little bit right away. I'll raise the envelope a little. Now let's restore the brightness. Might be another one. And now I'm going to bring in another oscillator, which I'll use to simulate reverb. And of course, I'll clear a space for our main attack. A little bit of hyperdimension. And now let's try a little trick. We'll set an envelope on drive parameter in the distortion, shape the attack, and emphasize the tail. This will give us a noticeable punch. And to prevent our 2 noise signals from blending together, you can apply a high-pass filter to the oscillator with our reverb simulation. In fact, you can route it to a separate bus and process it in parallel. I'll need a waveform like this, one that has a lot of harmonics. We could just use white noise, but let's do it differently. Harmonic series would be just right. I only need the second oscillator for modulation. I'll use a sine wave. Don't forget to remove the level of oscillator B. We'll use it for FM modulation. Great, now it sounds like noise. Now I'll route LFO1 to oscillator A and draw an envelope similar to the one we already created. All of this will be in envelope mode. The meaning is the same, attack and tail. I'll use a filter to set the tone for our sound again. Let's move on to the effects. After applying the filter, I'll make it a little brighter. Add a few more room. Cool. Now our bass is ready and we can do whatever we want with it. Let's add a little crispness. In the previous video about the snare, I showed how to create Foley. We'll apply a simplified version of that method here as well. I'll take a sample that sounds like paper. And of course, I'll remove all the low frequencies using a filter. I'll assign LFO2 to the level of oscillator C. All we need to do is align these two oscillators using LFOs 1 and 2. Now let's go back to the effects panel and create a powerful, overdriven clap. To do this, I'll use OTT. I'll lower the LFO1 speed. And let's replace our paper sample with white noise. And also blend them so they sound like a single. Resonance dramatically changes the character of the clap. Let's try doing that with our preset. I'll turn off the layer that gives us the brightness. Now I'm going to add a filter. I'll choose the one called Low EQ12. I'll increase the resonance and turn down the mix knob a little. And return OTT. To sum up, we need to create the impression of several short attacks. Resonances will help dramatically change the timbre of our clap. Over-distortion doesn't work well with claps. It'll destroy all our envelopes and dynamic, and our clap will sound like a short white noise.